had because flocked wallpaper really wasn't popular. So I just had this one little sample, but then all of a sudden somebody said, oh, let's do flocked wallpaper. Now there's so many cool samples. So flocked wallpaper sort of was supposed to be like a fabric wallpaper, except less expensive. And so basically when they make this, they like run it through a printer, but instead of printing ink, it's printing glue. And then once it has the glue on it, they run it through a machine that has fibers so that these like lines now are kind of fuzzy like velvet. So you can do it in all kind of patterns, and you don't necessarily have to use flocking. This one is done with beads. So it's really cool, really pretty. And this one is done with sand. And this is just another fluffy one. So flocked wallpaper, I really like it. It's probably a dust catcher, but that's okay. So this is grass wall covering. So this is actually made out of grass, right? Like a hay, I guess. So some sort of sisal. And so it's naturally woven like a fabric, and then there's another fabric back on it. What you need to understand always if you're doing some sort of natural fiber, I'll pass that around, is that it's never gonna match, right? Because it's natural. So once it gets to a seam, the edges here are never gonna match the other edge. It just will never happen because it's natural. So you need to make sure your client knows that that's just part of the look of the paper, that you're gonna be able to see those seams. And then this is string cloth. And so this is actually sort of a burlap, but it's very much like grass, except now I'm using yarns, natural fiber. With all natural fibers, you have to make really, really sure that you're using the correct paste. Because if you use the wrong paste, some pastes are yellow because they're clay-based, they'll get on the front side of it and stain. So the first one I sent around was kind of like a rough burlap, but this one's more like a cotton string. And then this one is silk. So it could be any, and this, so it gives off sort of a sheen. So it could be any sort of string, and it can get more and more refined. And we have linen. So technically a string, it's not linen. And then we have moire. So moire is really sort of this watermark pattern. They tend to make that noise, so I always kind of scratch them when I see them. They tend to be vinyl, solid vinyl wall coverings. But moire is technically the pattern. And I'm sure I talked about this, but when you're hanging wallpaper, I'll ask you guys. If you have a really bumpy textured wall that you're trying to hide the bumps, what type of wallpaper should you use? Or what type of wallpaper shouldn't you use is the question.
Vinyl.
No, vinyl could be okay.
Like the paper one? Like the basic one?
Well, true, if it's very bumpy, then you'll see the textures through. But if you use shiny, you'll also see the texture through, right? Because the light's gonna hit off of it. Just like with paint, if you have a really textured wall that you're trying to hide the defects, if you do shiny, it illuminates them. If you do flat, because the light absorbs in, it hides them a little bit. Did I tell you about my bedroom? So again, I live in the house that my grandfather built, and the bedroom, technically he just built the whole thing. And so all the door headers are slightly different. It's all, I mean, they're all just, everything's just like slightly off, and it really bothered me because I'm me, right? I want everything to be straight. So I painted the whole room a dark matte gray to hide all the imperfections, which worked really great, but it defies the rules that I give you, right? Because I always say the trim and molding should be what? In this class, you're always gonna do your trim and molding semi-gloss, because that's what it should be, because it's washable, cleanable. I did everything matte, the exact same matte, because I wanted it to all blend, because if I highlight those doors, now I see it, right? So there are rules that you get to break once you understand why and how you're breaking them. Borders, so these kind of are not in vogue anymore either, but I want to show them to you because I guarantee you they'll come back. It may be one of you that reinvents the border, like somebody just reinvented ice block, ice block, am I saying it right? Glass block,
Yeah,
sorry.
glass block, yeah.
I'm thinking cocktails. Still on the weekend. So borders, so not really in vogue anymore. It's really sort of a thin piece of paper that would either go around the top or the middle, but they could be cool. One thing, you guys have to get out. I really want to, well, we didn't have enough students, so we didn't have it, but we're trying to have a field trip class where you guys just go look at stuff. And so there's a hotel in the Culver called the Culver, and it's a triangle. Has anybody been there? It's like right on a block that's a triangle. And in the hallway in the stair corridor, they have like 5 different black and white wallpapers that they just cut into strips. It's really cool. So it's not like a regular width, but it's just 5 different wallpapers that they cut lengthwise, and they made their own pattern using all of these different wallpapers.
I know that.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
It's really cool. I was just there. I showed you. So murals, I don't have any examples, but you guys kind of know what those are. And murals have actually come a really long way, so you can actually do custom murals pretty easily now. So this is embossed. So embossed means that it's just a paper, and it's basically sort of molded. So a lot of times you'll use embossed. Girl, you don't get off the phone. You and my child. I had to take her phone away, TV off the wall, the whole bit. I was like, you gotta pay attention. So it's textured even on the back, right? So these are embossed. So when I look at it, it's you can see the texture on the back and the front. So a lot of times it comes paintable. So this one's not, that one's just a regular wall covering, but it comes paintable. So it's used like if you want to make something look like metal tiles or something, then you can paint it with a metal paint. And then we have texture. And so this is different because on the back side I can't see it. So this is stuff that is just applied to paper. So is it durable? If you pick at this enough, it eventually comes off. So if you have kids or whatever, you don't want to use it. But this would be great if you have a horribly textured wall and you can't afford to smooth it out. You could get something like this, and then at least the texture would be purposeful. This is Sorel. This is actually another one that's been reinvented over the last few years. When I was in industry full time, like this was typically Sorel. So it's a cloth that is healable. So the panels that we have back here that we pin up on, you can stick pins in it, but when you pull the pins out, it looks like it never was there. So it's used a lot for tackable surfaces. It's used for roller shades sometimes. Sometimes you put a back on it and you can use it as wallpaper. But if you feel it, it's sort of like a plastic material. And typically they were just plain. But now we kind of have really cool Sorel, right? Like I couldn't believe this was Sorel. Like I love it. But typically they look like this. So this is one that was paper backed. So you can't see through it, but it was meant for wallpaper. So repeat. So when you're talking about a repeat of a pattern, they are big and they are small, or they're non-existent. So this one's sort of non-existent. So if I have a stripe, if I'm matching it, it doesn't matter necessarily where I match it, right? The only thing you might want to consider with a stripe or something that doesn't have a pattern repeat is typically when I have a roll of wallpaper, it may or may not go from dark to light in the background. like this edge might be a little bit darker than this edge. Not that even your eye would notice it until you put another piece of wallpaper here that's a little bit lighter, and then you're like, oh man, I see the seam. So when you have a pattern that has no repeat, you may consider flipping it back and forth, so that I'm going light to dark, dark to light, light to dark. That way the seams will always disappear and have the same color. So you have repeats that don't have a repeat. And I could be lying. See, this repeat is deceptive because it's actually 21 inches. So let's see if we can find it. So there's like a cat smile right here. I would hate to have to hang this. Cat
Yeah.
smile. Well, I see this one, I think. Yeah. So here's one and here's one. So this is a repeat. That doesn't seem like 21 inches. So to me, from here to here is the repeat.
And then up there.
So from here to here is the repeat. Right? So whatever the distance is between where the pattern repeats is what you'll have to shift it up or down in order to get the match. This one's a little easier to see, right? Repeat is from here to here. So again, and see how this has something on the edge? That means the next one, you'll have to move it up and down in order to meet the edge. This one says it has a 20-inch repeat. That I believe. I'm not sure why this is. 21. Okay. So depending on how big your repeat is, you will lose paper, right? Because let's say these two are matching. If this is a large repeat, I have to shift this up in order to get it to match, and then I have to cut that off and waste it. Typically, there's nothing I can do with that waste once I've cut it off. It's just trash. So the bigger the repeat, typically, the more you waste. I kind of just said all of that. And I think that is it. Any questions? So there are some specialty. You can actually have wallpaper hand painted. Super expensive, right? But kind of cool. So you can actually send somebody the background paper that you want, and then they'll do special textures or murals or whatever you like. Oh, nylon foil. So this is a super shiny one, and one I didn't have a lot of samples of, but it's kind of making a comeback. Like this was my sample I had forever, but these two are more new. So it basically just has more of a shine to it. And then just specialty wall coverings. So we saw some beads. This is more like beads, disco ball. So wallpaper, and actually I should stop calling it wallpaper, but it's a hard habit to break. Technically it should be wall coverings because not all things are paper. Like this one is leather, so this is a leather wall covering. Leather wall covering. This is a felt wall covering. Felt. This is like a chipped rock. It's another chip rock. And cork. You can get almost anything you want. And then last but not least, and this one, so some things like you just shouldn't do. I saw this in a ad or something. This was a long time ago. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. I'm gonna order a sample for my materials class. And then the guy here and I was like, whack, whack. But it looked really cool in the picture, but basically it was just squares you put up and then that was it. But then when I got it, it felt like a fire hazard.
Yeah, that was really hurtful.
And then there are also acoustical wallpapers. So these happen a lot in theaters and sometimes in elevators. Haven't seen them that much in elevators, but definitely in theaters where you're trying to create more noise absorption like our ceiling tiles do. Typically not very pretty. So this is an area you could reinvent too. Okay, so questions for me? Okay, oh, wait, so one other thing, before we start our lecture or our explanation of the assignment. So, does anybody remember, based on the lecture, how wallpaper is sold?
Bolts.
In bolts. So this is a bolt. How many single rolls in a bolt?
2.
2. So whenever you specify wallpaper, you're gonna tell me how many single rolls you want. So you're gonna tell me, I want 6 single rolls. You're gonna order it. When it gets to you, it's gonna be 3 of these, because there's 2 single rolls in every bolt. I do not know why. Well, because it will give you 3 full strips on an 8-foot wall. But why don't they just call a bolt a roll? I don't know that part. That's the part I don't know. Okay. So remember that, because when we go up and look at the math, I don't want you to be confused. Okay, so let's go.